Ryzeal's got a buddy. Hello guys and welcome back to another cold episode, and on today's episode we are talking about Super Heavy Samurai Ryzeal. Now if you don't know, Super Heavy Samurai is a great way to get additional rank 4s onto your field. And synchro monsters. All thanks to Wakaushi. Wakaushi is an insane card that allows you access to a whole myriad of additional bodies, pretty much by itself. Not entirely, but pretty much, right? We are playing a few bricks. They're like pseudo bricks in order to facilitate this, but generally the idea is Super Heavy Samurai gets you additional rank 4s, meaning if you see the Super Heavy Samurai part of your engine, you then get access to your Ryzeal part. The downside is you can't really play spells and traps, so that kind of sucks. However, that can be compensated by just playing more monster hand traps. That's generally what we're doing. So instead of playing something like Triple Attack or Ultimate Slayer, we're instead playing things like Droll and Nibiru. That's more or less what we are accomplishing. We're also playing Gamma because, honestly, the driver is kind of a brick, but it's not that big of a deal. And Gamma is very, very good in this deck because your first action is to scale a guy and then activate its effect, which baits out a Max C, which then you can Gamma and go from there. It's very useful. So, yeah, that's generally what we're aiming to do. Now, with that being said, what are we actually playing? We're going to go quickly through the card by card and the explanation. Starting off with the Ryzeal stuff, it's pretty simple. It's the standard Ryzeal amount, for the most part. We're playing 3 Ice, 3 Sword, 2 X, 1 apiece of Node and Star, and then 1 Cross and Plugin. We're not playing the Trap for obvious reasons. Now, that being said, you don't need to play Plugin, nor do you need to play Called By. You could play other such hand traps because, honestly, they weren't needed for the most part. Now, I'm also playing 41, so again, you could cut all of those cards and play just 2 additional hand traps or something like that. You don't really need Plugin. You could even cut 1 Called By and just play the nice clean 40. Up to you. But for the most part, this is what I came up with. That is it for the Ryzeal stuff in the main deck. As for the rest, we are playing the Super Heavy Samurai stuff, which allows us to, we're playing the 3 Motorbike, which allows us to get Prodigy or something else. That's literally all it does. If you have no spell traps, you discard it to add a Super Heavy Samurai from your deck to your hand. Wakaushi then allows you to use itself as a pendulum scale, special summon it, putting this guy into the other pendulum scale, and then this guy searches out one of these 2. We're playing 2 for specifically the ability to actually search an additional guy. We're also playing 2 Big Benkai because this is a hard brick. If you have it in your hand, you can't use Wakaushi's effect, and it's very important to be able to do that. So I just said, hey, we'll play the additional, like, Garnet, just so that if we do end up drawing it, we can just still activate the Wakaushi, which is very important. So that's generally why we're doing that. Cool. We're also playing Scales as a search target so that we can special summon it with our Pendulum Summon in order to bring back Soul Piercer. Soul Piercer, when it's sent to graveyard, searches, and it's not a once per turn. So anytime it's sent to grave, you can just search an additional guy. So it's very, very useful, and we want to get this cycled a bunch. Hence why we're playing this guy, which reborns a guy. And it's also a 4, which is nice. So generally the combo will end on Baron. Like if you start with Motorbike, you get to go into Baron, and then from there you get to make another rank 4 due to your Scales and your Link Monster and all of that stuff. I'll show you the combo in a sec, but that is generally how it works. Now, this means that you can immediately pivot into something like Infernal Flame Banshee to search out a monster like a Sword or a Node or a Star or something like that, or you can go into Duo Drive as well, paired with the Baron, which is an Omni Negate. Pretty solid. And then it's just standard Ryzeal stuff. That's generally what the plan is, and it's pretty solid. So let's show you how this deck performs, and yeah. Okay, so let me show you just real quick what the combo does, specifically with the Super Heavy Samurai stuff. So we're going to start off here with the Motorbike. Motorbike will allow us to grab up the Wakaushi, and yes, I know I already have them, just ignore them. We're going to then activate the effect, or activate it into the Pendulum Zone, then activate the effect. Since we control no spells and traps in our grave, we get to scale this guy and special summon it. We get to then activate the effect of our Big Benkai, which then allows us access into our Soul Piercer. Piercer is then going to be normal summoned, and we are going to then synchro summon since we do have the level 2 in grave. If we don't have the level 2, we would just link it off right now in order to then get an additional search, which we can then use to get the Motorbike into the grave. So I'll show you. You would just link off into this guy. This guy reborns the Soul Piercer, and then you would do the same thing, just having searched a guy off of the Motorbike. That's it. right? So now we get to go into this guy, which allows us to do a few things. First and foremost, we're going to activate the effect of our Soul Piercer, which is going to search out a guy. Then we're going to activate the Stardust Dragon on field in order to reborn our level 2. And then we are going to scale our Wakaushi, which is going to put this guy back into the scale, which we can then use to Pend Summon. So from here, we are going to special summon out our level 2, and we get to search out, specifically here, we're going to search out Scales, because, yeah, we're going to use that for our Pend Summon. And then we get to Synchro Summon here into Baron. Fantastic. Also, something of note, this guy can modulate his level to level 4. So, he also is another 4 that we can use. Now here we get to special summon out our Scale, and from here we get to activate Scale effect, and we have the Omni Negate up, so we can grab up this guy, and I put this in the wrong zone because I'm stupid, but it's fine for the most part, because we can just link off this guy into our Scarecrow, and then we get to activate this guy's effect in order to search an additional thing. Yes, this does lose Sidroll, but so does, like, the entire Ryzeal combo. We're going to pitch a card, doesn't matter what we're pitching to the grave, just a card to the graveyard in order to reborn, again, the Soul Piercer. So we're going to special summon back the Soul Piercer, and then we're going to activate our Soul Peacemaker in order to equip to the Link monster, and out comes another guy, because this guy can tribute in order to special summon from the deck, and we are going to, generally, we would summon out the Wakaushi, because we'd have an additional copy, but we don't, but alas, that's fine, because we can just modulate this guy's level to be a 4. But that's fine, because now we can go into anything else from here. We can go Infernal Flame Banshee, but we have used our normal, so do keep that in mind. But we could go Infernal Flame Banshee here in order to grab up something like a sword or an Ext or something else along those lines. We could also just go Duo Drive and then do the full Ryzeal combo here. So yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go Duo Drive, and then from here you should understand generally what we're accomplishing here with the Ryzeal stuff. So let's hop into the replays. Alright, so here we are going first, and let's see what we can accomplish here. This is actually a very good hand, because we have Gamma Droll, and Nibiru, and we started off with the Wakaushi. So we're going to activate the Wakaushi, special summon it, add up the guy. You just saw this combo, so we're going to speed through this real quick. Out comes the Excel. We're then going to search out here. I did this a bit wrong. What I realistically should have done here is go for the Link one. I didn't do that. It's fine. I still recover, because we're going to go into our Scales off of this guy, and then just Pen Summon a little early. We're also going to Pen Summon out the Ice, so this is not really going to do anything since we already used our normal. At this point, we can then go into the Scarecrow. We're going to activate the effect of the Scarecrow in order to reborn a guy. Again, doesn't really matter too much. And then I actually just pop here in order to cycle more cards. So I pop my own guy in order to grab up the Soul Piercer, or Soul Peacemaker. Peacemaker is going to summon out another 4, and now we can go into the Duo Drive. We can activate the effect of the Duo Drive, detaching 2 in order to grab up the Sword, as well as Node. Yes, we're not grabbing the Field Spell, and the reason for it is because we can grab Star here. So we're going to go Node here, pitching a guy, or sending the spent rank 4, and now we can go into the Stardust Photon Blast Dragon. The reason we do this, 1, target protection. It allows us to keep our detonator safe, so that's the main purpose of this. But 2, it's also material, which means that we can use our star in hand, detaching 1, and then we also can set the field spell, and then detach another material from this guy, and it's still able to, you know, negate. So that's generally what we're doing there. And then we just make the detonator here, and we attach an additional guy, and pass the turn. So it doesn't look great, but we also have the Droll and the Nibiru, and this was basically off of 1 card. And at this point, my opponent reveals that they are playing, I mean, it's Tenpai. We all know it's Tenpai. As soon as we saw the Into the Void, I just assumed it was Tenpai, because who else is going to play a whole bunch of spells? So, yeah, the Droll is just going to kill them there, and they concede. Alright, and here we are going second, and it's the Roach. Hooray, the Roach. Let's see what we can accomplish here. My opponent is going to go for the Bonfire in order to go into the Ice. Ice effect is going to activate. They're going to special summon from the deck, and I'm going to maxi them. Out comes Ext. They're going to add the Node to hand, and then they're going to special summon out the Sword and Droll and Lockbird us after activating the Sword, which is not going to search. So I don't know why we did that the way that we did, but it's fine. Anyway, Detonator is going to attach the Droll from their grave. They're going to special summon out the Node, and then going to Exiton. I don't know why Exiton is here. We didn't have anything else. We didn't have, like, Tornado Dragon or something. Okay. Nibiru for turn. You'll love to see it. Anyway, that's fine. We're just going to start off here with the X and negate with Aggregator. They don't have Called By, which is nice, but they do have their own Maxi, which I will probably Called By. So, man, Maxi is really cool. They are going to pop. That's fine. We get to search out the sword. Now we get to go for the Wakaushi, and we still just get to special summon out a whole bunch of guys. Now, I'm stupid, because again, Called By was activated, so the Wakaushi actually doesn't do anything. Oops. However, we do still have the Scales in hand. So Scales does have an effect where if your opponent controls 2 or more monsters and you have none, you can just special summon it from your hand. So that's what we did. And then we normal summoned out the Soul Piercer and specialed the sword. My opponent decided to imperm there, but it doesn't really matter because I can just go Duo Drive. I also can just go like anything here. So I don't know what this was. They're going to go for the Detonator, which doesn't do anything because it's negated off of the Aggregator effect. And yes, they do have the Exciton Knight, but Exciton Knight also doesn't do anything because it's only during the opponent's battle phase that it gets to activate its effect. And yeah, good game. Alright, and here we are once again going first, and this time, once again, we do have ourselves the motorbike. So we're going to activate the motorbike in order to grab up the Wakaushi. We're going to activate the Wakaushi in order to special summon itself, as well as putting the Scale into the Scale, and then grabbing ourselves the Soul Piercer to go into the Scarecrow, activate the effect, grab up the Soul Peacemaker, and equipping the Soul Peacemaker. Now we're going to pitch a card in order to reborn our guy, and then we get to go into the Synchro monster here. I don't know why I equipped here, but it's fine. For the most part, we're just going to do the things that you've already seen, which is bring back in order to go into the Baron and grab Scale. Now we get to special summon from deck. We're going to Scale as well. We're going to keep the X in hand, and the reason for this is because X can still special summon itself and just pitch a guy, so we're just going to keep it in hand so that we can send the guy to the graveyard. At this point, we go for the Infernal Flame Banshee, and the reason for this is because we can grab Star, and then Star can detach and set the what have you, and then we can go like X, and we're off to the races at this point, right? And my opponent realizes this after I detach here. They're just like, oh yeah, you got it, dude. So good game. Alright, we're back with the deck, and honestly, this deck, I originally anticipated it to be worse than it actually is. I genuinely thought that this was going to be a bad deck, that it wasn't going to work very well, but honestly it actually works fairly well. The thing is, you can just play a whole bunch of hand traps right now, and they're fairly okay. They're not like exceptional, but like, you know, Maxi, Nibiru, Droll, all have fairly good uses in the current metagame. Droll just like cooks Ryzeal. It doesn't cook them, but like it does fairly well against them, right? Especially if you have the power of like Ryzeal cards, specifically things like X to just immediately invalidate whatever the opponent was doing. On top of that, even if your opponent were to go something like Bagooska with the super heavy samurai stuff, if they did end up going Bagooska, you could just make your own Bagooska and be like, cool, out my Bagooska. Or you could do a myriad of other things as well. Like for example, you could just make a Detonator and sit on Detonator as opposed to the Bagooska. So there's a few other things that you could potentially do. But for the most part, it doesn't really lose to anything in particular. It plays well in under like a bunch of hand traps as well, which is kind of surprising. I didn't really anticipate that. And yeah, I don't really see much of a weakness. It just gives you additional bodies. And the thing is, you can just lock yourself into 4s because you still get use out of your super heavy samurai cards, even if you are locked into 4s. So you can start with X and still do all that you need to do due to the fact that the Wakaushi and what have you can just put additional guys onto the field. Yes, they can go into things like Baron and the Link Monster and what have you, which would be something that they wouldn't be able to do after, but they could also just go and be used for Starliege, or for Duo Drive, or for Infernal Flame. So there's still a lot of merit to just having these cards in general, which is pretty cool. And overall, I do think that it is a pretty useful idea. It's similar in nature to the way that, well, what is it? Mitsurugi plays currently in the TCG, with having like basically a main deck mechanic that can pivot from one to the other. That's more or less what it does. So it's similar in nature to like Ryzeal Mitsurugi. I don't think it's going to be the end all be all. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be the best, but it is worth checking out. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys did indeed enjoy it. If you did, like is very much so appreciated. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye bye.